preppers and homesteaders. In this episode, I'm going to talk about something that I find kind of interesting for more on the prepping side. And I posted something about it on Reddit, and it was unbelievable the amount of traffic that it got that I just can't generate on this channel, but it was a interesting topic. It used to be for prepping. My thought was if you had night vision, thermal, and suppressors, that was a force multiplier, and you were above, I guess, most other people. You had the advantage. You could see in the dark, you could see the heat with thermal in fog, smoke, whatever. Pretty much thermal trumps, I think, night vision in most scenarios. And then suppressors lowers your signature from firearms, so you could hunt and you can do different things and not be as obvious as somebody without a suppressor. And plus it protects your hearing too. So it's one of those things. I thought, you have that stuff, you're well above and beyond everybody else. Living in the country though, and then this falls in that other aspect. There's so many people, they live in the city, and they always say, oh, when the crap hits the fan, I'm gonna run to the country. I'm gonna run, to the hills. I'm gonna run to the mountains. And I had a realization that those two things probably are not a good idea. For starters, living rural like I do now, I found, and then with the availability of financing on thermal suppressors and night vision, and now with the tax on suppressors being reduced from $200 down to $0, I was surprised how many people out here have thermal, have night vision, have suppressors. They hunt with them. There's a lot of people out here in the mountains and the hills that have night vision, suppressors, and thermal, the force multipliers. So it kind of changed my mind on what are the game changers in prepping, what you should be preparing, and what I have been preparing. The big thing is, it is still a force multiplier, but on the same note, other people are going to have that same technology. So I'm going to make this video short because there's not a whole lot to it. People that live in the city that think you're going to come to the country, more than likely somebody owns that land. If it's national forest, other people are going to have that same idea, and there's not going to be as much game out there as you think. Look at the Great Depression. A lot of stuff got wiped out. During COVID, a lot of things got reduced down population-wise because people were overhunting, or people own that land and they're not going to be happy that you're coming there from the city. Another thing is, everybody knows your business in the country, so they're going to recognize you're not from here, and that's another challenge that you're going to face. And most likely, neighbors, though they're not close, they will team up together and keep an eye on areas and have teamwork and keep an eye on the property. Like even the way it is right now, there's forums on the internet, local ones that we use. If something weird happens in town, and somebody will be like, did you hear that on blah, 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 or did you see that on this? What's going on? And it gets very high traffic and people know what's going on right away. So I'm not discouraging, people from the city to not, try, do what's best for your family, but you might want to plan ahead and have a place to go. Don't just expect to come to the country and expect people to have open arms and just let you in. They're not going to know you. In our old homestead in Wisconsin, I had a friend who lived in the city. He asked if he could come to our homestead if something happened. And before he even waited for my response, he said, I will have my own food and stuff. If you let me store it here, I could have my own food here. And I said, yeah, It was one of those, he was a good friend. I knew him. I knew he was in a bad location in the city. And if things, went south, it would be nice to have an extra person to help, pull security, whatnot, and all that. I trusted him. He had his own food, long-term 5-gallon bucket food. He had freeze-dried food. He had a good supply of his own food. So he wasn't a liability coming to our property. And it's one of those things, what can you bring to the table? You gotta, if you know people in the country, don't just be like, oh, we're going to your place when the crap hits the fan. You should plan ahead of time and say, hey, if things do go bad, what do you need from us if we're going to come to your place, if that's okay? More than likely, they're going to say, yeah, hey, that's not a bad idea. They're probably going to say like, hey, we don't have enough food for you and your family, so you might want to bring your own food. Or, we don't have, this or that logistically. You should have that here ahead of time, because maybe somebody has a small homestead and they have 1 bedroom. So in that case, maybe having a camper stored at your friend's place. There's lots of things you can do. You want to have stuff pre-positioned, all over the place. And believe it or not, people might laugh at me, I've got stuff pre-positioned on the way from here to Wisconsin. So my biggest fear is I'm going to go back to Wisconsin to grab some stuff, some supplies that we haven't finished moving yet, and something bad will happen. And I want to either not be stuck there and not be able to get back here. So I have, it's not a bad idea to have things cached along the way. So in case I have to make it back by foot or something like that, or run into problems on the way. There's lots of, and I'm not even going to get into that, because if people say like operational security, things like, whatnot, but it's not a bad idea. The best plan is just not to have to go back and not travel, because that's not a good thing if you're on the road far from home and something bad happens, because it's going to be hard to get back. And there's not very many roads where I live now to get back here. So if something happens, you don't know, maybe some locals are going to block the roads and make it difficult to come back. So the best plan is to be here. So am I telling you go out, get night vision, suppressors on? No, it's not needed. The best thing I'm going to get into right now doesn't cost anything, and it's probably the greatest prep you could have. And it is literally get to know your neighbors, get to know the right people in your neighborhood, and be an asset to your neighborhood and your community. The strength in numbers, it's one of those things. If a Red Dawn scenario and, I'm just going to use, that type of attack happens, having your whole community together is much greater than trying to be a lone wolf and survive by yourself on your homestead. It's one of those things that, there's a lot of different scenarios throughout history where that has taken place, and it's been helpful. Lots of movies too where they, kind of the same thing, and TV shows like Jericho, trying to think of some others, but there's a few others where there's a book too, 1 Second After. If anybody's not read this book, it's a really good book. It's about an EMP attack on America, and it's eye-opening, but the community gets together and defends the community, because I can't defend this place by myself. I have plans in place to defend this place, but it doesn't include just me. There's a lot more people involved in that, and that's one of those things too. But on the same note, I can't defend our county and our community without all the other homesteaders and all the other people of this community. So having a good relationship with your neighbors and other people in the community is a big benefit. And letting them know possibly, if you have unique, training, experience, you might want to let them know that too. And another great thing, and I'm not going to get into this episode because it's too deep of one to get into, but I had a meeting with another homesteader I know that lives off grid. We talked. He's about 45 minutes from where I am, and we're talking about creating a communications network, because natural disaster, emergency, just look at what's happening in the rest of the country with like some of the flooding issues we've had, natural disasters, people cut off, rural people cut off. Communication is key. And the old standby was, ham radio. Now there's other technology, like I think it's like Mesh-tastic, and there's other, things you can do now that are much easier to use, lower cost, and things like that. So, and small scale is just some Biofang radios, $25 radios. And in the event of emergency, your neighbors all have the same station and you can communicate, So, or, the old school way, just you have a neighborhood, something happens, natural disaster, whatever, apocalypse, you have a meeting point. You meet with your neighbors once a week, something, just to see what's going on. You have to individually plan that out, but yeah, there's lots of things you can do. I'm just gonna throw some ideas, and then hopefully in the comments, people will throw some more ideas. It's one of those things that it just really made me think, and even on that Reddit post where I posted, about all these city people thinking they're gonna run to the country, that it's just not gonna work out well. Now, on the same note, like I said, if it's pre-planned and whatnot, there's people that I know that are going to come here. I already know that. But and this is a big debate in the prepper survival community. What do you do if people come to you that you don't know? And that's a tough one, because as a Christian, do you turn them away? Me personally, I'm saying I'm a Christian. Do I turn them away? Obviously, I don't know. You could have different beliefs, that's a tough one, and I don't have an answer for that one. I almost feel like it would depend on the situation and whatnot, because is it like Mad Max or The Road where people are eating each other and cannibal, that kind of crazy apocalypse? Probably not, but a real small scale, localized event that happens, obviously I'm not going to turn people away. It's one of those, you need to weigh the pros and cons and kind of look at it with some critical thinking and decide what is best for you. So this is kind of a change in last week's video where I was, ripping apart the building over there. I'm still doing that. I just needed a break from it. And I'm still, obviously, those that watch this channel know I'm dressed a little nicer today. Unfortunately, it didn't end when it was supposed to end, so I'm still doing that side job. And that's why I'm dressed up. So not a bad thing. It's just unexpected, but not a bad thing. I still got a little while to go, which isn't a bad thing. But it gives me less time to prepare here. So it's one of those things, more or less trying to say, like, don't spend your money on crazy preparedness stuff, when the best preps are knowing your community and your neighbors and having a good network with them, because it's one of those things, if something happens, God forbid, you can rely on your neighbors. And I have people that I know I can rely on out here, which is great. When we first moved out here, we did not have that. And that was one of the scariest things I would say ever. You don't have that support network. I need to run out of town for an emergency, but our animals are here. Who can watch them? It was one of those, when we were first here, we really didn't know anybody, and that was scary. Now there's people out here that I know that they could ask me for almost anything and I would, go help them. So there's a lot of really good people that I have met that have taken me in, as a friend, and it's a good thing. So that is number one, I would say, preparedness-wise. I don't know what's going on in the world. I mean, there's so much going on in the news, and it just seems to be getting crazy. And I'm going to repeat what I've said in other videos. I'm only going to worry about what I can control. So what's going on in the world, our country, I can't control that. I can control meeting my neighbors, having a good relationship with them, being a part of the community, helping the community when I can, and getting involved in different things, Veterans of Foreign War, American Legion, I get involved in that stuff. There's things you can do, to be part of the community and, and try as much as you can. So, yeah, I want to do some videos actually on, coming up on suppressors and night vision, thermal for the homestead, because there's inexpensive ways. You ask a lot of people about night vision thermal and say, what's a budget way? And they're going to laugh at you and say, there is no budget way. But there is. There's things you can get that are pretty inexpensive. The suppressors now, the tax is $0. So you could actually do a Form 1 and manufacture one yourself for free now. You still got to do, there's some hoops you got to jump through and some, red tape, but it's not as bad as it was. They call it suppressors and short-barreled rifles, machine guns and all that. It's called NFA, National Firearms Act. It's called Class 3 weapons. There's no license that you have. You fill out and pay a tax to the government. It used to be $200 tax. It has not changed since the 1930s. So I'm going to give you a warning. This is my thought only. Who knows? I could be completely wrong, but this administration got rid of the tax that started in 1930 something. I forget what it is exactly. And that tax is $200. Back then, $200 was a lot of money. The tax has never gone up. So my thought is, if they can remove the tax, the next administration, you know, the one who doesn't like guns and whatever, is going to come in and be like, oh, we're bringing the tax back, but we're going to adjust it for inflation. It's going to be $4,000 now per item. So not saying, you know, don't go out and do all this stuff and get on, you know, get NFA items, but on the same note, it's a slippery slope. Because when you do NFA items, you know, suppressors and whatnot, short-barreled rifles, machine guns and all that, it's all legal. You got to get fingerprinted. You got to submit a photo. You got to fill out a bunch of paperwork and get a background checked. But historically, the NFA owners are the pretty much non-existent crime holders of gun. Like, they own all these NFA items and there's no crime from NFA items. There might be like one or two in the last, you know, since the 1930s, but it's very low. And there's very few instances. So in general, the government kind of doesn't, you know, you've paid your king's tax and you've jumped through all the hoops, so they kind of ignore you. But on the same note, it is a registry. They do have your information. So some people are going to be, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? That's up to you to decide. But on the same note, if you want to play with that stuff now and be out in public and not get arrested, you got to go through the hoops. And yeah, so there's different ways. I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just explaining the options. But if you were ever thinking about it, because you can actually hunt with a suppressor. I've been using suppressors for probably the last 10 years because I lost hearing in the military, and I like the fact that it minimizes that from happening and getting worse, because I can shoot a 22 without hearing protection now. You know, you should be wearing hearing protection when you're shooting a 22. But with the suppressor, it still makes a sound. It's not Hollywood quiet, but it's quiet enough that you don't need a hearing protection. And then you can shoot like a 5.56, a AR-15 with a suppressor. It's about as loud as a 22 without a suppressor. So you still need hearing protection, but it's not nearly as bad, and it makes you a good neighbor. So your community, you know, nobody's gonna like that guy that's mag dumping, you know, 30 round, you know, magazines one after another, you know, 2 in the morning, you know, but if you're shooting a 22 with a suppressor, chances are your neighbors won't hear you. So keep that in mind. It's one of those, you gotta really weigh and balance what is best. So, and that's a whole nother episode that I'm gonna get into, but I just wanted, because this law just changed January 1st. So it's a whole new world out there, and it's unfortunate that there's a lot of idiots out there that are just clogging the system, and they're submitting now. A Form 1 gives you the license to manufacture items. There was some idiot on one of the boards. He submitted like 30 forms, and his designs included like using potatoes and just stupid stuff that's gonna get rejected. It's taking up bandwidth and whatnot. So that's one negative, because back when the tax was $200, it was, you knew it was pretty consistent. You knew idiots weren't going to just clog up the system with, you know, potato suppressors and stupid things. So you've got a bunch of idiots that are just going crazy, that, you know, they're posting like they're staying up till 3 in the morning submitting 54, you know, just because once you submit the form, you don't have a time limit to complete it. So, but you don't have to go. Think realistically though, because you still have to get everything engraved. You still got to buy the material. You still got to, there's a cost involved, and it's just, I could go on and on about it, but you know, yeah, so I'm going to end it there. So hopefully this was helpful. I'd love to hear comments on this one and just what you think about, if you agree with me or you disagree with me about being a part of the community, being good with your neighbors versus being a lone wolf. What is the scenario? You know, are you just going to be in your homestead and nobody's allowed there, or are you going to try to be part of your community? And it really depends too, because my old community where I lived, I'm going to shift over, but believe it or not, the closest, SHTF type scenario, when we lived in our old homestead in Kenosha County. Anybody remember Kyle Rittenhouse and the Kenosha riots? Was not very far from us. Our neighborhood got together, teamed up, and we had a whole plan in place. And I helped some police officers who were under-equipped. I gave them stuff. So you can do stuff like that. I mean, and I got everything back. Nothing bad happened in our neighborhood, and so all was good. So it's one of those, you really need to weigh pros and cons and do what feels right to you, because that's the only thing. Like, I can go to bed at night and sleep good knowing that, hey, I did the right thing. I helped those in need, got together with the neighborhood, did the neighborhood watch. We had a plan in place. We had communications, radios, and it worked, so keep that in mind. But until next time, hopefully it'll be a little more cheery subject, but prepping should not be all doom and gloom. It's a lifestyle, and it's just a way of life for us. Like I said, the most realistic survival situations you're going to have is, a loss of a job, a family emergency, different things like that. It's just good to have insurance or preps in place. So hopefully that is helpful. I've got a lot to do, and I've got to get up early tomorrow, but as you can see, this weather is just absolutely beautiful, and it is just so nice out right now. The mountains are it's just beautiful. It's great weather. But yeah, till next time. And thanks again, new watchers and old watchers that have been watching this channel. Thanks again. I can never say it enough. So, and look forward to some fun, interesting videos. Like I said, I'm going to do some on suppressors, just because as a homesteader, it's not a bad thing, if you choose that you're okay with that, But thanks again, and until next time, bye. Till next time, bye. Big camera. I'm still waiting for the temperature in my water to be perfect. It's still warming up. I'm gonna end it there. Thanks. Like and subscribe. I gotta support this shirt. It was a gift. I love it. I do. So thanks again.